Right. So we've got about 7 minutes to go, but I will call up our next session. That's Ong and Min from ThitsOX talking about technical updates and contribution to the Mojaloop community. Min, you ready? Awesome. Best as you can.
Okay, shall I start?
Yeah, when you're ready.
Let me use that. I can use it. Good afternoon. Hope everyone had a chance to get coffee. My name is Min. I'm with This All Work. And in today's session, I want to talk a bit about our Mojaloop journey, the technical solutions that we develop along the way, and what we are planning to contribute back to the community. The slides. Simeon? There you go. Okay, so I'm sure many of you know who we are and what we do, but for those of you who are new to this convening, I just want to share a little bit about what we do and where we are. So This Our Work, we're known for 4 particular areas. So first is core banking system. We are the biggest provider of core banking solution in Myanmar. Of course, we're at Mojaloop community, so we're very big in the payment, especially with WinePay. The third pillar, we manage a credit information exchange, which is a credit bureau in Myanmar specifically for microfinance. And lastly, we run a lot of digital financial literacy activities in Myanmar as well, and now we're trying to do this in other areas as well. The reason I want to talk about this is because I want to highlight that we're making a lot of investment in digital financial literacy, and the reason is quite simple. Doesn't matter how cool the system is, how cool your wallet is, or how fast the payment is, if the end user don't know how to use it, right, guess what? There's no volume, there's nothing happening. And this is where we're spending a lot of time. Over the past, call it 4 or 5 months, we have trained over 3,000 loan officers, and through them, we've trained closer to 80,000 end users. We don't have precise detail yet, but we're beginning to see that that digital financial literacy training is actually having a very positive impact on adoption and usage as well. So that's something that we want to highlight. Okay, so in terms of speaker, everyone know my colleague, the founder, Konyi. He has done presentation. The CEO, Gopie, he's also done a lot of presentation on the hub governance and risk management framework. In this presentation, of course, myself, I look after business and strategy development. And to be absolutely honest, I'm here because of my very, very loud voice. The actual brain is Goal, who's actually doing a lot of the stuff, but he's not as loud as me, so he asked me to do the presentation. So if you have technical questions, please be kind, yeah? So Goal, can you hear me? Oh, there he is. So yeah, I'll point at him. Just as a quick background, my profession is more in the banking side, investment banking as well as commercial banking. So I was very happy, creating real value in the world by hiking lending rates. And then Goni come and say like, oh, there's a really cool thing called inclusive instant payment. The dark side is very strong, so I'm here. So I'm not a technology person, I'm not a payment person, I'm trying to be cool like you guys. Okay, so our Mojaloop journey. We started out with WinePay. This is something that everyone is familiar with. This Our Work equals WinePay. And we're very proud of our achievement in that particular area. That's something that we're doing. In addition to that, in last January, we completed a 6-month project, which is wallet-to-wallet, cross-border remittance proof of concept. That is being financed and supported by the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and we tried 2 corridors. One is Singapore to Myanmar corridor, and another is Singapore to Philippine corridor. Thirdly, we are spending a lot of time, again, utilizing Mojaloop technology for digitizing agricultural payment and supply chain payments. This is something that we're doing at this point. And lastly, we're spending a fair bit of time on merchant interoperability as well. And this is something that our existing clients have pushed us to do it, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. I'd like to take a second to recognize our supporter. So WinePay, Gates Foundation, of course, UNCDF, cross-border, which is supported by the Monetary Authority of Singapore, the Central Bank of Singapore, and for digitizing agricultural payment. We're looking at, the rice and maize and a couple of supply chain that's being supported by LIFT, which is a multi-donor agency focusing on the agriculture development. So, So in our journey, we've created a lot of new things that to make our proof of concept and our use cases work. So hub operation, we categorize it in 5 different areas. So the first thing is hub operation. The second thing is cross-border. The third thing that we want to share about is things we wish we had when we started this journey, and then wallet interoperability, and something that we are very closely looking at, which is FRMS, VNex, and also forward compatibility with blockchain-based system. With blockchain-based system, I'll talk a little bit more tomorrow when we share about our cross-border experience, okay? So in today's session, what I want to talk about is hub operation. There's a couple of things that we have developed. So deployment strategy, what would be the ideal deployment strategy that we have developed to make, WinePay type hub operation function well. This is our payment portal, which is a web portal for MFIs or SACCO that doesn't have core banking system to be able to participate in the payment system, the FSP portal to make sure hub operation can be automated. Cross-border, as I mentioned, I'll talk a little bit more tomorrow. Things we wish we had, demo wallets, stress testing strategies, those are things that I can share with you. Merchant registry, by popular request, we can talk a little bit more about it today, okay? So, a question that I got, will this our open source these? Of course, we're very happy to. But before we do that, I want to share with you some of the design consideration when we're doing these things, so that later on it will get a little bit more clear why we did what we did. The expectation for this presentation, I don't know what happened. So expectations, so there's a lot of slides about user interface and what have you. We thought about running demo, but with the time constraint, it's not conducive. So there's a lot of user interface and what have you that we put in the slides. You can go through it. The expectation is that you can go through and reference it, and you can come back and talk to us. You can say, hey, Min, page X, what do you think about this? What are you doing? What are you trying to do? And we can respond to that. Please come and talk to us, call us with technical details and what have you. We won't go into super technical details on that side. Okay, so design consideration. So this is something that I'm sure that everyone in this room understands. So, but why we're putting this is because when you are working with your partners, right, a wallet or an MFI or what have you, you'll come in faced with this type of misconception. So 2 axes, right? One is digitization and another is adoption. Generally, when you talk to your potential partners, the wallets or microfinance or what have you, there's a general conception that more digitization equals more adoption. And that's generally not true in our experience. What we see is that there is an optimal level of digitization. If it is too much, the adoption actually can decrease a lot, right? So you can talk about creating a very cool wallet with very complex features and what have you. The target group that we're talking to, the unbanked, the underbanked, when they see it, they're going to get confused, they're going to get intimidated, and they will not use it. And we face that issues on a regular basis. And when we have to, work with our partners, we have to highlight those issues. And so I just wanted to put it out there, right? The second thing that I want to highlight is that there are 2 distinct customer segments that we are addressing, especially in the case of WinePay. So one segment is low-income rural community, and another segment is what I will call the middle-income urban, semi-urban community. These 2 groups are very distinct. They have different level of digitization requirement, and again, I'm sure you guys all know this, but the reason that I wanted to highlight this is because in WinePay process, right, we have wallets which generally try to address to the urban middle class, whereas the microfinance tend to focus on the low-income rural class. So both have very different business model, DNA, thought process, and what have you. And when we're developing a hub operation and trying to connect the wallets and the microfinance to digitize this, the microfinance sector, you have to spend a lot of time trying to bring them on a common ground. And this is something that we shared, and this is also reflected in some of the bits and pieces that we are building and we want to share. And we just want to make sure that why we build certain things the way we did. So how we view Mojaloop, everyone knows this Mojaloop's an engine. So what can you do with Mojaloop? You can build anything you want, right? You can put the engine on a boat and you can make a speedboat, right? You can put it in a Land Rover Defender and create an off-road vehicle. Or you can put it in a Ferrari. Well, maybe not Ferrari, but I know you're gonna do that. I thought Warren would make that in, but anywho. So anyway, so you can put a lot of that. And the reason we put this is because it's our own learning journey when we were building the remittance project, the agriculture side and what have you. So when you started the process, a lot of people will tell you what you need to build, right? And our experience is you better listen to your clients rather than bigger problems, because they will tell you what they want and what they want to build. So when we started building what we built, this is something that we thought about it. The environment that we built in, right? So in Myanmar, it's an emerging country, and I try to highlight this with a very rocky road, if you can see it. It's an off-road type terrain that we're trying to build something, right? And then some of the technology partner that we come across, be it mobile wallet, core banking system, what have you, sometimes they're trying to build for, German Autobahn, right? It's kind of a little too extreme environment. And so this is kind of like the design thinking that we've gone through. We made a lot of mistakes. We learned from it, and this is something that I hope we can share as well. So, so the environment that we're building in, especially in Myanmar and some of the other emerging markets that we're seeing as well, right? So what it is, internet connectivity can be limited. Power, electricity, it's not consistent. This is the reality that we're working with. Not all end users will have smartphones. And sometimes the challenge that we're having is one smartphone and one number is being shared by multiple users, right? That's something that you have to think about as well. Not all DFSBs are very adequately digitized, so they don't have core banking, they don't have API capabilities and what have you. That's the environment that we're gonna have to build inclusive technology. The internal capacity can be constrained for the FSB as well, especially in some of the emerging market. The regulatory requirements are quite complex, and it can come out at any moment by a phone call. Hey, I want this report now. Right, so the regulatory requirements are quite complex. The infrastructure preference of the FSB can vary, and also the regulators' preference on infrastructure is also varying on different degree as well, right? And especially in Myanmar, we have several regulators that we're trying to deal with for WinePay, and so this is something that we have to adjust to that as well. Okay, so one thing that I also want to acknowledge is that there's a lot of what I would call, the private-public partnerships that are being built. Different countries have different speed that they're implementing. We're going from, a rocky off-road to a German Autobahn. There's a lot of that going on. And it's also, even in a country, in certain areas, it's faster. You can find an Autobahn. In certain areas, you're gonna find a rocky road. So we're trying to create that. So where we're talking about the cooler stuff, right? The open finance, the API-driven economy and what have you, that's kind of gonna happen on that side. But when we're building it, we're trying to make sure that what's happening currently is being addressed, but we're also trying to make sure that in the event or in an area where we can move to a more smoother infrastructure, we can easily move into that particular area. So those are some of the design consideration that we're putting in. So what we're doing, Mojaloop engine, and there's a lot of bits and pieces that we're develop and we're putting around. And as I mentioned, we're developing what I would call Land Rover Defender type, all-terrain. It goes very well on off-road, but of course it can drive on Autobahn as well. So this is something that we're trying to develop. And when you start reviewing or looking at our codes and the bits that we built, this is something that we are thinking about. Okay. So let's start with hub operation, deployment strategy. Guang, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Okay.
So, let me just quickly go through this. So deployment experience, sorry, Guang. So deployment experience, we have 4 separate deployment experience that we've gone through. So the first, of course, at WinePay, it's not just deployment, there's upgrades experience that we have. We made some mistakes, we learned from it, we share in the previous sessions as well. The second one that we prepared quite heavily is for the Singapore cross-border, but due to requirement changes, we didn't end up deploying it. The third bit is for a private client, wanted to try a cross-border remittance POC. So deployment, it took us 3 days. It's a Mojaloop deployment as well as a cross-network provider. And so it's another POC that we're trying for a private client. And lastly, something that we're looking at is wallet interoperability. So in Myanmar, we don't have interoperability standards, but there's a lot of wallets. And all these wallets have bilateral connections. And they are having a hard time making those connectivity and maintaining those connectivity, and they want to standardize. So one wallet partner, for example, they have connected to 7 or 8 different wallets, and they want to make sure that they don't have to manage the bilateral connectivity. So they are coming and talking to us, and we're trying to look at whether or not we can actively support that particular area. So that's something that we're talking about. Now, how does that work in detail? Guang, can you share a little bit?
Yes, sure. Okay, here I would like to share about this deployment strategy. Since the beginning, we use the Mojaloop IAC to deploy the full hub together with its services. But after the last PI, we modify the IAC here. We replace my SQL services with the Amazon AWS, and we also modify the way the load storage principle. Currently, in our current Mojaloop IAC, we use EBS to store the log. So for that, we replace with the S3 service, and then for my SQL database, we replace with Aurora. There is some requirements to do those. The first thing is for the stability and performance. Because if we are using this AWS Aurora instance, we can increase the performance, we can scale up the things, and also we can provide the disaster recovery. And some more using this Aurora instance, we can separate read instance and write instance. In our hub, we are deploying the DFSP portal, which is mainly to serve the reporting purposes for all these DFSP. So DFSP administrator will come in and use the DFSP portal to generate the reports. In that case, if we did not separate read and write instance, there may be some performance impact to the hub for the transition databases. So we modify the IAC to create this Aurora instance. In the future, we also continue to explore, which service we can replace with a managed service, maybe including the Kubernetes cluster to replace with the EKS, also running the container inside the ECS. I think, Kuming, let me hand over this back to you.
Okay, thank you. So let me talk a little bit now about this payment portal. So as you know, our WinePay project is to connect microfinance with wallets, right? There are 138 microfinance companies, and when we start talking about it, only a handful have core banking technology with API capabilities, right? There are many more, some of which have core banking, but legacy system, and that doesn't support API connectivity. And there are a lot of microfinance that does not have any core banking system at all. They're being run on manual Excel or what have you. So we had to make a decision. So WinePay, it's a volume business, and then there's positive externality on the volume as well. We want to create an ecosystem, inclusive, and we also want to scale as well. So the question is, how do we onboard these microfinance companies that do not have core banking or have legacy core banking system? So we developed this payment portal, right? For those that have APIs, it's pretty straightforward. They connect to Payment Manager, P4ML, or Payment EE, or what have you. You connect to WinePay, and then you can get into any of the wallets. That's a general design. So we try to replicate that for MFIs or microfinance that are a little bit behind the digitization journey. So for MFIs with API-capable CBS, core banking system, loan officer will put all the disbursement information in the core banking system, just to press of the button, API deliver that to WinePay, and then the whole transaction effect. That's pretty straightforward. We tested it, everything works. Now, for MFI without API-capable system, we created a web portal. right? This is not a complex system. We create a web portal. When we created it, we have the end user in mind, people who are not again, not very high up on the digitization journey. So they can upload Excel file, CSV file, or whatever, CSV file or Excel file. They can upload that. Once it is uploaded, there's a number of verification, authentication process that are built into that. So you can't put too many zeros in there, so it's pretty standard. You have to make sure that the national ID, the account number, and the phone number all matches. So a number of verification to make sure that it's not too risky. And then, of course, once you upload it and confirm, the transaction effects. The same thing is true on the repayment as well. So clients repay through agent or wallet, goes through wallet, it automatically get reported in the MFI system for MFIs or API-capable CBS. Those without the CBS or the API-capable CBS, the repayment information can be downloaded on a real-time basis. It can also be viewed on the portal itself as well. They can download it, and of course, the loan officer or the treasury officer can do what they do on the reconciliation process, right? So this is something that would allow, we believe, would allow us to expand the effectiveness of WinePay to a broader ecosystem. So we started the development in October of last year. November, December, we started developing an MVP. We started testing with 3 MFIs and 2 wallets. We just recently finished the UAT testing. And then we hope that we'll be able to release in June. Right, so this is something that we're doing. We're testing it now and testing it well. We're onboarding more and more clients onto this on the testing stage. And of course, Go On and team will fine tune everything before the launch. Right, so the key features, user management. So you can create user based on branches, loan officers, central or the hub, what have you. You can create any type of user. You have payment procedure maker and checker. You have two different bulk payment, so repayment and disbursement. You have search and download functions, and of course security is tightened on that as well. And of course, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of authentication and verification process built in to make sure that it is safe for MFIs to use. So the next few slides I included for your reference. There's a lot of user interface. Again, with the time constraint, I don't want to go through the demo. You can go through it. Let us know what makes what you find interesting. Let us know, and we can talk a little bit more about it as well. Incidentally, a couple of days ago, we talked to some of the Rwandan organizations that are digitizing the SACCOs and the MFIs here in Rwanda as well, and we talked about this, and they were quite interested. And we're trying to see like this is something that we can contribute to this community as well. Right? They were quite excited about this particular project. So you can go through, at your leisure as a reference, you can go through some of the features. And if you have any question, of course, please ask any of us at this hour. So the current process, how it works is that we're working with, we are the facilitator, we're working with the participants, and we're going through the review and the use case, and we're trying to enhance that process. If any one of you want to participate in the process, we will very much welcome that process. Okay. Now, hub operation, I want to talk a little bit about the FSP portal. So as many of you may know, the report generation is still fairly manual in the Mojaloop system. And when we started the WinePay project, we have very limited users, right? We have FUT, the front-end user test. We have very few, 2 or 3 wallets, and we have not too many MFIs. Now FUT is expanding. We have now 5 wallets that are participating and testing. We have more MFI that are testing. Even at that level, the reporting requirement and the manual interventions are getting a little bit cumbersome. Right, so we started developing the FSP portal. What it does is fairly simple. Right now, all the report generation is manual, and transmissions are all based, all emails. And that creates a lot of burden for our hub operation staff. So the FSP portal, in essence, what it does, it takes all the data from the WinePay operation, and it transmits it on real-time basis to the FSP as well as the settlement bank. Right, so automation, that's very important. But what we're beginning to find is that once you start putting it into the FUD users, the level of trust beginning to increase because it's real-time settlement information on a real-time basis. Right, so they can see what's happening. Right, and when they see what's happening, it's not about waiting 3 hours to see the report. And so there's a level of comfort and trust, and that's beginning to create a more, create a better user experience for our user as well. And of course, our hub operation staff, Gopia can verify it, is having fewer and fewer late nights, right? So this is something definitely very helpful for us. We're happy to share with anyone interested in this particular area as well. So again, just to show the development process, we started the process in June. We should have developed it sooner, but there's a lot of things happening in Myanmar, and so development process got a little bit delayed. But we're happy to announce that we finished UAT testing, again with our FUT users, and we'll be happy to release it to the community very soon, hopefully next convening or fairly soon. So product key features, dashboards, right? So balances, current position, NDC, those are some of the key requested areas. Report, there are standardized report as well as ability to customize report as well. The customized reports are very important because the regulator tend to request a lot of different things at different times. So that's something that we build in, user management, of course. Again, we try to create something that is very simple and user-friendly. And something that anyone can use, right? Again, as I mentioned before, DFSBs, as well as all the DFSB wallets or MFIs, there are different level of, they are at different points of digitization journey, so we're trying to make sure that it is applicable for everyone. There are some fairly simple. Looks like a very early version of Facebook. And that was a joke. So how you generate custom reports. Again, custom reports. It's not moving. Oh, there you go. Transfer details, user management. Please have a look and let us know, if you have any comments or if you want to help us think about our next version, like what are some of the features that you may want as well, okay? So the next thing is things we wish we had when we started the Mojaloop journey. So I'll hand it back off to you, Guang, on the demo wallet side.
Sure, Gumi. Okay, Gumi, next slide, please. This demo wallet actually we built for the purpose of simulation. Actually, for the end-to-end simulation between two DFSB. Let's say we launch the hub, we want to simulate the transition. So we dig the DFSB to onboard on the hub. So if we are trying in the development environment, we may not have the DFSB. So we can use this demo wallet at the DFSB, and then we can onboard onto the hub, and then we can perform all the transition. So for this purpose, we designed this system. Actually, this is just for the simulation purpose, but we use almost all the features from wallet, such as account and balance, transition ledgers, also the reporting, and then you can deposit the balance into this wallet account. So here in this demo wallet, you can create two types of account. The first one is for MFI because we are using the MFI inside our YB hub. So for the simulation with MFI, we need to create the MFI account. So we can create MFI account, and another one is the mobile wallet account. So using this one, we can set up the FSB, and then we can perform the transition. I go next slide, please. This is the entry screen of our demo wallet. Here you can perform the transfer, or if your wallet account doesn't have a many, you can deposit. There is a link. Click here. If you have this PowerPoint slide later, you can click this link to check the demo wallet in real life. I go next slide, please. Okay, this is we are performing the party lookup through the demo wallet to extract the PE information from the other end TFSP system. So here we enter some MFI account information, and then we choose the MFI, destination MFI, then we invoke it. So demo wallet system will call the lookup party API, and then it will receive back the response from the hub, and then it will display on the UI. I go next slide. Okay, so after we have looked at the party information, we can continue doing the code service. So here we can enter the amount and then we can invoke the code API call. Then we will receive the code information. I go next slide. So after we have received this code information, we can start doing the transition. So here we click the confirm button and then it will perform the accurate transition. So if you have the help and then you want to simulate this end-to-end transition, you can use this demo wallet. I think there is no more slide for related to this demo wallet. Yes. Okay. Kumi, please continue.
Okay, going on, we want to talk a few more things, core banking system and also lightweight connector, right? The reason that we want to bring this up is because, you know, when we started the Mojaloop journey, we want to be specialists in hub operation and instant payment. We've done a lot of POCs, and for that reason, we're getting very good at POCs, right? And then in that POC, it's becoming very, very important because every time we talk to a new client, when we talk about the concept itself in, you know, a PowerPoint presentation and what have you, it's harder for people to appreciate what the system's actually doing and capable. A lot of people have, you know, cannot visualize it. And so we started putting that. And so in the past, we started using the connectors. You know, we have some dependency on the client's wallet. We have some dependency on the client CBS. And we started going through that. And that dependency, of course, create, you know, delays in the project. So what we started now is, you know, we have a demo wallet. We, of course, you know, using Mifos. Actually, you know, in our Mojaloop journey, we started with Mifos on this as well. So Ed out there. And we started creating what we call lightweight connector as well. This is something for demo and POC processes. It can use for a lightweight kind of operation, but you know, once the operation or the pilot or the POC scale up, we can upgrade as needed. But this is something that allow us to start talking to our clients and start demonstrating that, and in their environment or in our environment, separate instances in a very cost-effective way. Right? We have to be very cost effective in that particular stage. So this is something that we're doing. Core connector, we're in the process of development as well, and we'll probably release that to you as well. And so hopefully, you know, for the next several POCs and what have you, this is something, the pain points that we had when we were running. So we solved it, and now that we've solved it, you know, we want to release it back to the community. And of course, hopefully, you know, every next POC get, you know, shorter and more effective and more efficient in that particular segment. So thanks. Stress testing strategies. We want to make sure that when we're developing POCs and everything, we want to make sure that it's performing the way that we want. And so we started developing some testing strategies as well. Go on.
Yes, sure, Kumi. Recently, we performed this stress testing just to know the stability of app and how much app can handle the load. So we use JMeter to perform this load testing. I go next slide, please. I think we can skip this one. The next one, please. Okay, in this load testing, we perform 3 API calls. First one is account lookup, another one is the code. After that, we call the transfer API. In here, we already highlighted the number of threads. It means 20 users per second, and then we loop 500 times. So basically, for each API call, it will generate 10,000 requests. I go next slide. This is the account lookup setting. Okay, next slide. So in this code API call, we provide the asset party to minimize. In our system, we have to, in wallet system, user has to confirm, but here it will auto accept the party. So to receive the code API call, it will do the auto accept. Okay, next slide. Next slide. Okay. Here, the final one is the transfer API code. This is the transfer API settings. Okay, go next slide. With all these settings, we perform the load test, but unfortunately, as we see here, there is a failure rate, which is 16.87%, which is very high. But actually, from the optimistic point of view, this is not a bad thing because we need to find out which one is causing this problem. Currently, we are doing the record analysis to find out, okay, maybe this might be because of some misconfiguration inside the hub, or some component is not running properly, or maybe some other things. So we are still finding out the root cause. Once we have the update about this thing, we will update to the community. So, but right now we are still finding the issue. Okay, go next slide. Based on the load test result, these are the common failure. Later you can check inside the slide. Okay, go next slide. So this is our environment setup. Before we run this load testing, we scale up all these services, account lookup, central ledger, also even with MongoDB services. And we also use these specification. So we run inside the AWS, we use the Aurora instances, and then we will run using the large and medium instance. So basically, this kind of configuration, 20 TPS should be able to handle, but right now we have 16% failure rate, so we are finding out the issue. I think, Kumi, I think you can continue the rest.
Okay, thank you. So merchant repository and dynamic QR payment. This is something, it's kind of a long and winding road to reach to this point, because in Myanmar, there's a lot of discussion about this over the past 5 years. We still haven't fully implemented it. Incidentally, last week, the Central Bank of Myanmar came out with the final specification of the QR. Before that, what we were doing was we were trying to create, as I mentioned before, a Mojaloop instance that could potentially create interoperability between selected wallets. Not all wallets wanted to participate, but there was a critical mass of wallets that wanted to participate because they were already having bilateral connectivity, and that's proving to be cumbersome and difficult to manage. So they wanted to see if we can do that with standard APIs and what have you. So we started doing the feasibility study on that process. And as we were doing it, a lot of the clients come back and said, hey, we want a merchant repository. And the first initial reaction for us is that not really, not right now. We have a few things that are going on. But then once we start listening to their requirements, when we start understanding what they're trying to do, we're beginning to find that what they're trying to do architecture-wise and solution-wise is quite similar to our MCIX platform. MCIX is currently capturing 3+ million unique data points as loan clients, and all the associated informations and what have you in there as well. And so we started looking at if we can tweak the MCIX platform to fit that. And of course, we have to create a few backend as well. And so we started exploring that as well. So Guan and the team is currently in the process of putting together an architecture and testing it with the wallet partners that we have in Myanmar. We're looking at August to start the development, MVP testing, and October, we think that we can put it into operationalization as well. The dependency, of course, is the QR standardization, whether it is final or not. That's that's somewhat separate to the actual what do I call the merchant registry or merchant repository as well. So that's something that we're working on as well. And hopefully by next meeting, we'll be able to bring you some updates on that. I think that's really it. So, what I would like to highlight is that on our Mojaloop journey, right? Our journey with the Mojaloop from, Infotex to Gates Foundation, UNCDF, a lot of different groups have contributed a lot to our journey. We learned a lot, we made a lot of mistakes, but some of the partners also help us in fixing those mistakes, and we learned a lot, we created all these things. So we feel that now it's time for us to give back. We have certain timelines that we're putting together, and if you are interested in understanding more about it, please come and talk to us, Goni, Goang, and Kopye as well. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thanks very much. I want to go back, Coming, if possible, to the TPP point and ask whereabouts in that process the transfer is confirmed as having been completed.
Kuang?
Oh, sorry, Michael. Could you please repeat that question again?
Sorry, Carl. Yes, I wanted to go back to the TPP process and ask for participants who don't have a core banking system or have a core banking system which isn't reachable through APIs. What point in the process is a transfer marked as having been completed and responded back to the switch as having been completed?
Here, actually, the payer side is the offline. For example, let's say you are doing the repayment to the offline MFI. So MFI will be at the payee side. So in that case, for the MFI, offline MFI, the TPP portal is handling. TPP portal will respond, okay, we receive the transfer request, we respond this thing. So TPP will be handling this part.
So the transfer
If,
will be marked.
yes.
Sorry, carry on. Go on.
Oh, yes, sorry. If PR is offline, then the recipient, the payee is online system. So you can ignore that one. Just for the repayment, the TPP portal is handling this transfer request. Yes.
So,
Can I answer your question?
well, it's potentially a worry, I think, because if the payment is being marked as having been completed in the Mojaloop system before you've received a deterministic response from the TPP process, then it seems to me that that potentially opens a possibility for disputes where, let's say, for some reason or another, payment is marked as having been completed in Mojaloop, but it never actually makes it to the credit point in the core banking system. So therefore, the payer and Mojaloop thinks that those funds need to be settled, but they haven't actually been credited to the beneficiary's account.
Actually, in TPP, this one is designed like a core banking system for offline MFI. So these MFI, they do not have a core banking system. So TPP act as a core banking system. Let's say payer side, the wallet, they will transfer, they will make the repayment. So this repayment request will come in through the app, then through TPP. TPP, we have a PM for ML, we deploy for each offline MFI. Then through this PM, then it will reach to the TPP portal, TPP middleware. So this middleware will respond back to the payer side. So this middleware is acting as a core banking system on behalf of all these offline MFI.
But I thought I had understood, correct me if I'm wrong, Coming, that it was also being used to support MFIs which had a core banking system that didn't have API capability. And that what would then be going on is that a spreadsheet would be generated, it would be sent to the accounts department, and the accounts department would manually enter those transfers into the core banking system. So my question is, if that process fails in some way and somebody's account doesn't get credited, then, as I say, the transfer is marked as having been completed in the Mojaloop system, but it hasn't actually, the beneficiary's account has not in fact been credited for it.
So I can talk about the technical details, but there are a couple of instances where what we're trying to do is manual integration of TPP into the core banking system, right? So that direct transfer, and that's one of the cases that we're developing now and testing around right now with the one from Mondelez. Go on. So that process is going on, and there's a testing phase as well. So what you said is noted. We want to explore that a little bit more as well. But so far, it seems to be, well, so far we haven't had any major issues on that particular area. But the fault line that you mentioned, something that we definitely need to explore as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the things we've constantly tried to concentrate on in Mojaloop is to ensure that,
Sure.
that each transfer always has a deterministic outcome and that there can't be any disputes about them. Because when we're dealing with these kind of very small scale transfers, anything that involves manual input is fantastically expensive.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Oh. I think Steve in the back is looking for a microphone.
Hi, you mentioned on the merchant stuff that there are 3 million data points. Can you clarify what you mean by that? Is that 3 million merchants of?
No, so we have 3 million unique data points of loan borrowers, right? So loan borrowers, they're associating information like national ID, all the associating data points and what have you. And we, so that essentially is a registry. And then at any time a loan officer go out and meet a potential loan client, so it's a credit bureau system. So there's an API call, so in the digital field application, they're talking to, let's say, a potential client. And they would say, do a credit and analytics and say, what's your social security, well, not social security, the national ID number, and the national ID number will be put in place. There's an API call that verifies, or at least come back with the information that, if that potential clients had loaned with any other MFIs, if they have defaulted, if they have, restructure and all those information, all that information comes back from the back end to the digital field application. And there and then, a loan officer can make a decision that whether this is a client that they want to go forward and, continue the conversation, right? So that's something that we're doing. It's a similar, my understanding, again, go on, please correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that in the QR response, it will be a similar level of response as well. And so we're trying to see if we can use the existing repository of loan client information, modify it a bit to meet the merchant repository requirements. So it's a fairly stable system. We just have to change the data fields and of course put the back end, the payment part as well as the dynamic QR in the front end. So that's what we're thinking. But we're again in a very early stage.
Cool. Thank you.
There's a few people here who have never been to a convening before, or maybe only been to 2, and I just want to point out something. Remember when we got super excited about the contribution of Wired In yesterday? Because we're like, wow, this is a new company that's actually contributing. We did the same celebration of ThitsaWorks 2 convenings ago, and I just want everybody to take a moment to realize ThitsaWorks is a relatively new contributor, and this was an amazing, huge step forward. So please, everybody, take a chance to just appreciate everything ThitsaWorks just presented to us. So,
Thank you.
But also appreciate that this is a sign of we're actually on the right track. A new company has really stepped up. This is possible for anyone to do. A lot of you who are just learning about it now, this should be the example that it is possible. It's not like there's some closed group of people who are magically capable of using and contributing to Mojaloop. ThitsaWorks has proven that it's possible to do this. Thank you guys very much. I'm super happy with this, and please, I can't wait to see what you guys present at the next one.
Thank you so much. Roberto just made a motion, so I kind of want to highlight something that I forgot. Roberto and Andreas is the People Clearinghouse based out of Mexico City. They're also thinking about setting up a very similar platform like WinePay as well. And so, we're currently working on providing the hub operation, the governance, the operation manual, the risk management, and everything as well. And we hope that that collaboration can grow as well. This is a starting point, but if any other hub operator or potential hub operator want to participate in the development of the processes and procedures, sometimes those are more important than the actual technology, because those are the documents that your central bank is going to review, and those better be very solid. So that's something that we want to share with as well. So. But anywho, I think Roberto promised me at least a case of beer before I deliver. So, thank you very much.
Right. Excellent. Thank you so much, Min, and the ThitsaWorks team.